The budget will also provide investment in energy efficiency. This Government's commitment to make better use of energy is already clear from the Renewable Energy Framework, the Climate Change Challenge Fund, the Saltire Prize, the announcements of almost £1 billion of private sector investment in renewable projects, and the new Energy Assistance Package. In this context, we have met with the Scottish Green Party to discuss their proposals for a step change in investment in home insulation in Scotland, which would make the links between addressing fuel poverty, reducing fuel bills and tackling the issue of climate change, in addition to promoting jobs in the insulation sector. We are in active discussions with the Scottish Green Party about how best to implement an area-based home insulation scheme. We agree on the need to develop a scheme that provides a simple, straightforward offer of advice, assistance and essential insulation measures to deliver savings through economies of scale.
Thank you, Deputy Presiding Officer. There are many reasons why Greens might choose to criticise the budget, might choose to oppose the budget as it stands. As the Transport, Infrastructure and Climate Change Committee discovered, this is a business-as-usual budget. And at a time when we face the economic crisis, the climate crisis and the impending energy crisis, the case for a fundamental change of direction for our society and our economy is irresistible. Now, in the previous session, when the previous executive had a majority, there were occasions when we voted no, or voted yes following constructive changes, or abstained when the arguments were finally balanced. And in this session, we reserve the right to take any such position. SNP members have warned Parliament not to jeopardise the budget. As I've argued in the past, this serious responsibility falls to us all in a period of minority government. To us as members, to every political party, to enter into constructive dialogue in the process and to actively seek agreement. But also it falls to the Cabinet Secretary to remember his responsibility to build consensus, or at the very least a majority, and that requires him to compromise and to take seriously the constructive suggestions of others. Our approach has been to bring constructive suggestions into direct dialogue with the Government, not dropping in last-minute demands which are unrealistic or unachievable or unwise, a strategy adopted by some which seems designed only as a positioning exercise rather than a serious proposal. No, we prefer to take forward detailed discussions months in advance and to maintain an active interest in the delivery as money goes out the door. Last year we took that approach and it led to constructive work on the Government's limited spending on walking and cycling, on third sector budgets which now support credit unions among others, and on the Climate Challenge Fund which is empowering communities across Scotland to cut greenhouse gas emissions in radical and creative ways, tackling climate change and building resilience for the age after peak oil. Despite those agreements last year and our other areas of agreements, there were too many areas, notably on transport, where we could not drop our criticisms, and like others, we abstained in the final vote. But we repeat this constructive approach this year. Again, we seek sufficient changes to the 9-10 budget to allow us to support it. But to be clear, those changes will need to be significant. Our first priority, and one which every political party should be able to support, budget or no budget, is a dramatic increase in the rate of home insulation right across Scotland. We looked at the work that our colleagues in Kirklees local authority down south have delivered, taking an area-based approach, street by street, door by door, not setting up a phone line and wait to see who calls, go and knock on the doors and do the work. A universal approach, no means testing, because no matter what mechanisms are used to target for fuel poverty, some people will fall through the cracks. And free, removing the barriers of cost to make sure that we get the maximum uptake. We've argued that scaling up this kind of programme for the whole of Scotland would have multiple benefits. Climate change and peak oil, clearly. We could cut something like 6% of Scotland's total greenhouse gas emissions once the job is done. Tackling fuel poverty, saving cash for every household in Scotland, hundreds of pounds a year. Investment in jobs and skills, which other political parties have rightly called for, supporting what we would argue is a green investment-led recovery from the current economic crisis. And so support for this proposal has come not only from environmental NGOs that we might expect to have supporting us, such as the John Muir Trust, Friends of the Earth, WWF Scotland and Energy Action Scotland, but also from the business sector, from the Scottish Building Federation, from Scottish business in the community, and from Scottish Renewables Forum, who've all made supportive comments about our proposals. Now, we believe this has to be done on a dramatic scale. Our estimate is that it would cost something like £100 million a year on top of what is being spent already to achieve a 10-year programme to cover the whole of Scotland. Now, I can entirely accept that the government may have a different estimate. If they're able to come forward with numbers showing the number of jobs already done that wouldn't have to be included in that figure, let's hear it. If they're able to come forward with a different estimate of the cost savings from an area-based approach, which has an economy of scale built into it, if they're able to come forward with a different figure, let's hear it. Let's hear what that figure is. But we're not able to know that the government is committing to the project until we start to hear those figures. Now, the Cabinet Secretary knows, I think he understands the value of the proposal we're bringing forward. I think he would like to be able to do it. He needs to be able to make it clear to the Chamber that he intends to. Now, he may have misspoken in his opening speech, so let me be clear. There are two elements to what we're arguing for. The Advice, Audit and Insulation Programme, which must be free, universal and area-based, with the intention to cover the whole of Scotland over an ambitious timescale. This needs a clear commitment and government funding. CERT money on its own will not do it. The second element is a loan scheme, similar to the Recharge scheme which operates in Kirklees, allowing people to remove the barriers of cost to installing for hard-to-treat properties, but ensuring that they don't have to pay back until they sell their properties. Now, I know the Cabinet Secretary's colleagues are working on the detail of that. I need to hear his intention to bring forward such a scheme. There are those, Presiding Officer, who argue that the environment slips down the agenda in a recession, but I would say, when's better than a recession to stop wasting energy, wasting money? Let's hear the Cabinet Secretary commit to building the 21st century infrastructure we need.
Patrick Harvey set out, as he set out very clearly in private and public discussions, the thinking of the Green Party in relation to the contribution they're making to the budget process. And the Government is keen to take forward its discussion with the Scottish Green Party on an area-based house insulation scheme. And I was interested in the comments that Mr Whitton expressed a moment ago about the value of such an initiative. In my view, such a scheme would be available to all homes in the initial areas chosen, and after that process we would then, following evaluation, identify the best way to deliver such schemes across the whole of Scotland over an ambitious timescale. The Government will also seek to bring forward proposals for a significant loan mechanism to improve hard-to-treat properties, those without lofts or cavity walls to insulate. This will be properly funded by the Scottish Government as part of a scheme designed to bring in additional independent funding, and I confirm to Parliament our intention to bring forward such a scheme, and we will of course have further discussions on those questions.